would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed guests and participants. Today, we are going to discuss a very crucial issue of India's new Europe outreach. This event is organized in association with APRI. We are honored to have Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, our advisory board member and former ambassador of India to Kazakhstan, Sweden, and Latvia, as our chair. And panelist Dr. Benyamin Poghosyan, Senior Research Fellow, APRI Armenia, Payal Kanwar, Director General, Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Emmanuel Karagianis, Reader in International Studies, Program Director at Department of Defense Studies, King's College London, Nawar Chalakyan, Research Fellow, APRI Armenia. Before we begin, I request our mentor, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, sir, to launch MPAGD 2024 report. MPAGD is our annual flagship event that we organize with the Ministry of External Affairs, India. Thank you, sir. Sir, please.
Yeah. So, friends, it's a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to release this report on the Maharana Pratap Annual Geopolitics Dialogue 2024 that took place a few months ago in March this year. As we can see, the report is quite extensive. It is comprehensive, and I'm sure it's a very rich account of all the discussions and deliberations that took place at the MPAGD. Also, in terms of the very significant and substantive recommendations that I'm sure Usanas Foundation would have communicated to the authorities, to the government that be, based on the deliberations that took place at the conference. I would like to take this opportunity also of complimenting the chairman of the Usanas Foundation, under whose guidance and leadership this all this work is being carried out, the work of the Usanas Foundation. In fact, our meeting today is also under the umbrella on the platform of Usanas Foundation and, of course, of APRI, which is a partner of for the event today. But coming back to the report, I was present, although rather briefly, at the MPAGD at the beginning of this session in Udaipur, and I could sense and feel the energy, the enthusiasm, the dynamism, and the vibrancy in the air when the meeting opened and discussions took place there. And I'm sure all that is reflected in the report that has been brought out so very painstakingly by Usanas. So, congratulations to Abhinav, congratulations to his very dedicated team, Dr. Anita Jain. Congratulations to you for all the hard work that you are putting in, and your touch, your soft but firm touch in terms of dealing with all the challenges that come while organizing such events. And to you also, Preeti, for holding up the fort whenever it is required and necessary. So I have great pleasure in launching this report, and I'm sure it's going to be available on the website. And maybe if you can share a copy with all the participants today, they will also be able to have a look at the report and get benefit from all the contents of that. Back to you.
Before we begin, I would really like to thank APRI for joining as a partner in this event. APRI has been a great friend, and definitely we have organized events with APRI earlier also. And I'm glad to inform that in MPHD 2024, Noir Charikyan and Leonid Nasisyan participated as panelists from APRI. And we look forward to more fruitful engagement with APRI in the future also. And we are going to discuss a very critical issue today, this India's new Europe outreach. Lately, India has become like India's engagement and India's bilateral ties with Armenia, Greece, and France have really strengthened. And these ties span across several domains: civilizational, strategic, economic. So I think it's really time now that we started discussing this crucial topic. So I'll just, from here, I'll request Ambassador Sajjanhar to chair the session and moderate the session, invite the panelists. So just one request. First, I'll request you to invite Dr. Emmanuel, because he has to leave like in another 30 minutes or something. And Payal is not able to join because she just informed me today afternoon that she got flu, so she's not able to speak. That's the reason. Okay. So we have 3 speakers now.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Abhinav, and congratulations to you and APRI for today for organizing this get together. It's a very important subject. And, if I were to go very briefly on the title that you have mentioned, one is as far as New Europe is concerned, Europe is changing. We see that, of course, if we look at the European Union, how it has transformed from 51 when we had the first Treaty of Paris, so the Declaration of Paris, then the Treaty of Rome in 1958, then 1992, the Maastricht Treaty, but it has been evolving from a purely economic engagement, economic agreement. It has gone into a more strategic and more political instrument also. And I think that makes it not only very interesting and exciting for countries like India to engage with it. Of course, the economic element is also very important. But the fact that the world is changing, that there are tectonic shifts that are taking place in the world. So Europe has to, and the European Union has to play its role. India's engagement with the European Union has been expanding very greatly. We have seen that over the last many years. We had in 2021 the first India EU summit in which all the EU 27 leaders were present. It had to be held virtually because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Prime Minister Modi was there, so I think that really took it forward. We are discussing on the India-EU FTA, India-EU geographical indications of origin, India-EU investment agreement. So I think there is lots that is happening, and we can see that there is going to be much greater intensification of bilateral ties. If I were to speak briefly about Europe beyond the EU, I think that also is very significant for India. We have just recently signed the India-EU FTA, the FTA between the two entities, the four countries of EFTA and India. Negotiations had been going on for a long time, and we have been able to clinch that. So I think that also sends out a very clear message as to how India is very keen to take our partnership forward with Europe as a whole. Coming to Armenia, Abhinav, you have already said a few words, and I'm delighted that we have this opportunity to host our friends from APRI on this platform. If I can mention, I myself have had on a personal note, I myself have had the pleasure and privilege of visiting Armenia over the last few years. Also visited the Nagorno-Karabakh region, which is today, and visited many of the cultural sites there, which has been taken over by Azerbaijan currently. But India-Armenia relations are showing an upswing. I think at the official level also, we saw the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. I recall when I was there, I had the opportunity to call on Prime Minister Pashinyan. And we also established a bust of Mahatma Gandhi when we had gone there, established a center for peace studies in Yerevan. And the first meeting between the leadership of the two countries, Armenia and India, I think that provided a fillip to our relations. Of course, in between, COVID intervened, but we had our visit, our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, visiting Armenia in 2021, and then the Armenian Foreign Minister coming to India in 2022 and 2023. I think there is a huge potential for expanding our relationship, whether it is in the area of people-to-people contacts. Of course, our civilizational, cultural, historical links go back many centuries, even millennia. And we need to revive that. We need to bring them, give them a current day, modern day complexion, and bring it into the modern day architecture. We have had a number of dialogues that have taken place. Even just last week, there was the Yerevan dialogue that took place with the participation of the ORF from India. And as Abhinav says, Usanas has collaborated with APRI on earlier occasions. So I think we can look forward to a very rich and a vibrant discussion on this very important subject, important countries who representatives who are going to take part. And I'm sure we will have a very full presentations, very rich presentations, and also very extensive discussion. So with these introductory words, I have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Emmanuel Karagianis. He is the reader in International Security, Program Director, Department of Defense Studies, King's College London. So you have the floor, Dr. Emmanuel, and I think if you could speak for about 15 minutes or so. After that, before you leave, possibly we could see if there are any comments or questions on your statement, and we could take it forward from there. So you have the floor, Dr. Emmanuel.
Yes, if you don't mind, I don't want to go first. If you don't mind.
Okay. Oh, you don't want to talk first? Okay, no, because I thought that you said that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I don't want to go
Yeah,
first.
that's the impression that I had got.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
No. Okay,
So I had thought that,
specific now.
Okay, not to worry. Then we'll go in the order in which this invitation was issued. But then before I invite Dr. Benyamin Poghosyan, let me say few words on the India-Greece relations also, because that has also seen a transformation in recent years. We had the visit of the Indian Prime Minister to Greece some time ago, and that was the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister after a long, long time. And that has really proved to be a metamorphosis as far as bilateral ties are concerned, in both as far as economic relations are concerned, and also as far as the political and strategic ties are concerned. Then we had the pleasure of receiving the Greek Prime Minister. He was the chief guest at the Raisina Dialogue last year, and also both visits coming one after the other within a span of 1 year has again demonstrated the very keen interest that both sides have in taking this relationship forward. So a very warm welcome to all the participants. And now let me come to, since Dr. Emmanuel does not wish to be the first speaker, let me, if I may, invite Dr. Benyamin Poghosyan. He is the Senior Research Fellow from the Partner Institute, APRI, former head of the Institute for National Strategic Studies and National Defense Research University, Armenia. So, Dr. Benyamin, you have the floor, please.
Ambassador, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure and honor to take part in this webinar. First of all, big thanks to Usanas Foundation and Mr. Abhinav for organizing this in collaboration with APRI. I have to say, before going into the details of my presentation, that APRI Armenia is the only think tank in Armenia which has clear track and clear focus on Armenia-India relations. And in the last 20 months, APRI Armenia is a relatively young organization. We officially were registered and launched only in January 2023. But when we look how much we have been done to push forward Armenia-India relations, including on track 2 level, cooperation with different Indian think tanks, going to India, taking part in different conferences in Raisina Dialogue, and also the annual conference in Udaipur, which Usanas Foundation is organizing. Also, we have a pleasure to host 5 Indian speakers for our annual APRI Forum this June 2024, including Abhinav. So really, this last 20 months were a remarkable journey for all of us to know India and also to push forward bilateral relations. Personally, in 2023, after I joined APRI, I had my first visit to India. Then I visited India again in 2024. And I have to say that after traveling a lot in Europe, in United States, in post-Soviet space, in China, my visit to India proved that I missed a lot to better understanding the world. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. Regarding the topic of our webinar, the India's new outreach to Europe, I would like to speak about the changes in European.
Can you be a little louder, Ben? Your voice is
louder. Okay.
Yeah, please be a little.
Now
louder.
it's okay.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So I would like to speak about the changes in European security architecture. What does it mean for Europe? What does it mean for India? Why both India and Europe need each other? And at the end, I will briefly touch the issue where Armenia stands here and what role can play Armenia to bring Europe closer to India. So first of all, again, we see how the European security architecture is under the transformations. In the last 100 years, we see several of these transformations. First World War, then Second World War, then we have the Helsinki Final Act, 1975, which seems that somehow bring peace and security to Europe, so to divided Europe. Then after 1991, collapse of the Soviet Union, again, there was a feeling that this time Europe will be united in peace. And we all know the concepts of united Europe from Lisbon to Vladivostok. We include Europe and Eurasia in this unified vision of peace and secure and stable area. Unfortunately, starting from probably 10 years from now, especially after 2014, we see how European security is becoming more and more internal. And after February 2022, we see complete rupture of former European security architecture. And now Europe is in the crossroads, especially the process of this rupturing of European security architecture. This is in parallel with the changing global order. We are passing from unipolar order, which started in 1991 and was marked by US hegemony, to something else. It could be multipolar, it could be bipolar. Some people or experts are speaking about fluid bipolar world order, but these two parallel processes, changes in global order and also rupture and destruction of European security architecture. And now we have the large-scale war in Europe, first time after 1945. This puts very tough questions for Europe. Where European Union is going to go, what European Union is going to do. And the additional complexities add through the changes in supply chains or ruptures in supply chains. And we see how European Union is finding itself in the crossfire, like de facto war with Russia, more and more economic decline, and also rise of problems with China and European Union efforts to somehow navigate this complicated area of world geopolitics. And here I think India is suited and fitted very well to be one of the rising factors for Europe. Why? Because first, as I mentioned, if we go into geopolitics, European Union needs new partners. The idea that, okay, the United States will provide Europe with security umbrella and the Europeans will enjoy their life, spending all their resources on social welfare, on education, healthcare, etc. This era is over. We see that how much United States is pushing its attention to the Asia Pacific, and the European Union understands that it needs new partners in geopolitics also, but also in geoeconomics. As we see how some investments and capital outflowed from Europe to the United States, and the basic social welfare system of the European Union and the European countries are in danger, EU needs also new economic partners. EU needs economic partners to sell its products, but also European companies need places to produce. And especially as relations with China are becoming more and more complex and complicated, I believe India may serve for the European Union as a place for experts, giving the huge population of India, number one in the world, 1.4 billion people, young population, and also India can be a place where many European countries can produce or can assemble these things. So from all these perspectives, I believe that the European Union really needs India. But if you look from Indian perspective, India is a rising power. According to different estimates, only 3-4 years from now, Indian nominal GDP will be the third in the world, only after the United States and China. And if you look into the GDP by power purchasing parity, Indian GDP is already third in the world after China and the United States. And this growing Indian economy and Indian efforts to move away from its immediate neighborhood and go to the extended neighborhood means that also India needs new partners. And also India needs geopolitical partners to find its way in this new emerging, let's call it multipolar world order, when definitely India will be one of the important players. And also the Indian foreign policy of multi-alignment, that India is not against anyone. India is not anti-Russia, is not anti-US, anti-West, or even not anti-China, but India would like to find its own place and develop its economy further to provide more and more benefits for its 1.4 billion population. It means that in this quest for new partners, European Union can play a significant role for India. And here India also needs European Union as a partner, as a geopolitical partner, but also as a geoeconomic partner to sell to European Union, to import from European Union, to be part of this European Union changing or evolving supply chains. So from this perspective, as again, world is going to something new order, which is again very difficult to argue what this order is going to be, but both the European Union and India, I think, needs each other. But then question may rise, okay, what can compact Armenia do in this between these two big giants like India, very soon third economy in the world, European Union, 27 member states, quite developed states, India with population of 1.4 billion people, European Union, approximately 450 million people. What Armenia can do? or why Armenia is here, like why we're discussing also Armenia. When we speak about India-EU connections and ties, we should also understand that India needs more routes to reach European Union. I mean about physical routes, transit routes. Yes, India has a Suez Channel, but we all know that Suez Channel has problems. Has problems because of growing number of ships. And let's not forget what happened in spring 2021, when the wreckage of one ship created turmoil and 2 weeks disruption of this very vital supply chain. And also since October 2023, due to the geopolitical tensions, Suez Channel is not the safest way to navigate for anyone. So India needs additional routes to reach Europe. Europe needs additional routes to reach India. And here, Armenia can play a role, connecting India to Europe via Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Black Sea, and Europe. Of course, this route has its own complications. We know that relations between Iran and the West are complicated, especially after February 2022. And also, there are a lot of infrastructure problems connecting Armenia with Iran, Armenia with Georgia. But still, in a long-term perspective, definitely India needs more routes, physical routes, to reach Europe, and here Armenia can play a role. And second, I believe that Armenia can play a significant role for India, especially in digital technologies, to be some sort of hub or entrance place for European companies to reach India and Indian companies to reach Europe. Because interestingly, while Armenia is a compact country with a population of 3 million people, but we have quite developed IT sector. Maybe because in Soviet times, the math school was very strong in Armenia. In Armenia, you will find a lot of local startups, very successful ones. Some startups which then migrated from Armenia to US and now are multi-billion companies like Pixar. And in Armenia also, you will find the branches of global giants of IT industry like Synopsys, like NVIDIA, like other Texas Instruments, Microsoft, and others. And given how much digital technologies are transforming our life, and also how much they're penetrating in all aspects of our life, it's not only about smartphones or laptops or tablets, it's about everything. Cars, airplanes, like smart homes, TVs, healthcare. I think here also Armenia and Armenian companies can play a role for connecting also or bringing closer India to Europe or to the European Union in these IT development. Of course, this is only like an ideas, vision, and we can go much into the details. But given the time limits of our webinar, I would like to stop here and looking forward for other speeches, remarks, and Q&As session. And again, thanks to Usanas Foundation for organizing this important and timely webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Benjamin, for your very interesting ideas and interesting thoughts that you have provided in terms of how both India and Armenia can cooperate, collaborate in also bringing India and Europe together. So what is the role that Armenia can play? And I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to discuss some of these ideas and get some views from the floor also. So could I now, after this, invite Professor Emmanuel for his presentation?
10, 12 minutes, I will focus on the Greek foreign policy towards India. First, I will explain the main pillars of the Greek foreign policy and the decision-making system, assuming that you are not familiar with Greece. Then I will briefly describe the history of the relationship, and then I will focus on the Greek-Indian relationship in the post-1974 period when Greece became again a liberal democracy. And towards the end, I will briefly mention a couple of issues that are under discussion or negotiation between the two governments. From 1967 to 1974, there was a military dictatorship in Greece, and following the events in Cyprus with the Turkish invasion of Cyprus in July of 1974, the military dictatorship collapse, and Greece returned to democracy. So since 1974, for the past 50 years, there are some, let's say, pillars that more or less have been relevant for all governments. So the first main pillar is the pro-Western orientation. Greece joined NATO in 1952, and then joined the European Union in 1981. So Greece has always had a very pro-Western foreign policy. Greece perceives itself as a part of the West. Okay. Of course, there are some forces, political forces in Greece, like the Communist Party, that have their own perspective. But let's say that there is a consensus in Greece as we speak about the pro-Western orientation of the foreign policy. Another important pillar of the Greek foreign policy is that there is an effort interstate disputes to be solved according to the international law. That means that solutions to problems like the problem of Cyprus or problems between Greece and Balkan countries, including Albania and North Macedonia, must be solved according to the national law. Of course, there are different interpretations of the international law, but to make a long story short, has always been a strong preference of the Greek diplomacy to use the international law as a guide. And if if two countries cannot solve their problem by negotiation, then they can always refer to the International Court of Law at the Hague. So this is, let's say, the second main pillar of the Greek foreign policy. The third pillar is the special relationship with the Republic of Cyprus. So the Republic of Cyprus currently controls, let's say, around 67, 60, no, less, 60%, 60 to 61% of the territory of the island. The Turkish army controls around 38. The British sovereign bases constitute something like 2 or 3% of the territory. And then there is a buffer zone of 1%. So 60% to 61% of the territory of the island is under the control of the Republic of Cyprus. The Republic of Cyprus is populated almost exclusively by ethnic Greeks. So there is a very strong connection to Cyprus. Greece has committed itself to defend the Republic of Cyprus if there is another Turkish invasion. So this is something that foreigners need to have in mind, that there is a special relationship there between the two countries. Also, the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been very conscious about maintaining a very good relationship with the United States, with France, but also some other countries like the UK and Germany and Italy. But let's say the US and France have been long perceived as Greece's two main allies. And another important pillar of the Greek foreign policy, even before 1974, when Greece was not a democracy, is the containment of Turkey. So Turkey has been identified as the number one security threat for Greece. Now, when it comes to the Greek foreign policy decision-making system, the most important actor is the prime minister. So the prime minister, like India, is the most powerful actor. There is a president, but the president has only ceremonial powers. So the president is not influential at all. But of course, if someone very popular, someone very influential and charismatic becomes the president of the Hellenic Republic, of course, that person can even indirectly exercise some influence. But officially speaking, constitutionally speaking, the president doesn't really have any powers. Then we have the Minister of Foreign Affairs. It's located next to the parliament. This will give you an idea about the status of the MFA in Greece. MOD, the Minister of Defense, also it's another important actor, especially when it comes to military diplomacy. The parliament, of course, does play a role, especially when it comes to parliamentary democracy, when it comes to interparliamentary dialogue. But I wouldn't call the parliament an important factor when it comes to the Greek foreign policy. And then we have other either non-state actors or let's call them semi-state actors. So the church, the Greek Orthodox Church, can influence to a certain extent the relationship of Greece with certain countries like Turkey, Russia, Ukraine. The church is part of the state, so I wouldn't call the church in Greece as a non-state actor. It's part of the state. There is no separation between the state and the church in Greece. The business community, as a non-state actor, also can exercise some influence, especially when it comes to dynamic trade partners like India. The media, to a certain extent, can play a role, especially when it comes to Turkey, to Cyprus, to North Macedonia, neighboring countries. There is also the Greek American or the Greek Australian or the Greek Canadian communities that from time to time can try to exercise some influence. And also there are some other institutions like the National Council of Foreign Policy. This is part of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. This is a forum where representatives of different political parties will discuss foreign policy issues. Briefly, there is a long cultural, historical relationship, obviously, between the two countries, especially during the Hellenistic period. That relationship was really close, and I'm sure that in India many people are aware of this, but I don't really know how many are aware of this. I'm sure that there are enough. In Greece, I will say that more than enough people are aware of this cultural background. For the reason that Alexander the Great is perceived as the most important, or let's say the most famous Greek hero. So the average Greek person knows that Alexander the Great and his army were able to reach India. Maybe they are not aware of other details like the cultural element of that relationship, how Greeks and Indians at some point formulate their own states. Maybe they are not aware of other things, but at least they know that there is that relationship. Diplomatic relations between the two countries were established in 1950. And, historically speaking, since then, Greece has tried to maintain a good relation with India without too much effort. And this is because the two countries had very different orientations. So, as you know, India was a leading partner of the non-alignment movement. Greece was member state of NATO. So there was no much interaction, but in general, at least since 1974, Greece has been supportive of the Indians' effort to gain a permanent seat on the Security Council. And generally speaking, Greece will support the India position on the Kashmir issue. Now, since 1974, the relationship was there, but again, not too much interaction for various reasons. One reason was that Greece focused maybe too much on the European dimension, on the immediate neighborhood like the Balkans, the Eastern Mediterranean region. But since 2019, under the Mitsotakis government, there is a rapid improvement of bilateral relations. So when it comes to trade, there is an effort to, let's say, promote bilateral trade. Currently, it's less than $1 billion, the annual trade volume, but there is a tendency to grow there. So India will export textiles, chemicals, machinery. Greece will export mostly agricultural products, machinery, financial services. So there is enough space there for prosperity and growth, but at least things are moving towards the right direction. And something else that we need to mention here is that there is an effort to promote cultural cooperation. So some Indian universities will have a chair in Greek studies. We don't really have anything equivalent in Greece. We don't really have a Department of Indian Studies or a chair or anything, but let's say that there is growing interest about Indian literature, about Hinduism, about Indian food. There is a community of Indian expatriates, around 30,000 people living in Greece. They are mostly employed in by the agricultural sector, but their presence, of course, is quite important. Now, let me spend 1-2 minutes explaining the military dimension. So there is a new military relationship. There was an agreement signed by the two governments in April of 2024. According to that agreement, there will be more and more bilateral exercises, but also the two countries will participate in international exercises. And now, as we speak, there are four Greek jet fighters participating in the Indian exercise Tarang Sakti. This is really important, at least from the Greek perspective, because this is the first time that the Greek Air Force has reached the Indian subcontinent. Also, there is an appetite, let's say, to promote cooperation and joint training between the two navies, between the Greek and the Hellenic Navy and the Indian Navy. There is a provision, but I'm not sure how far it will go. But there is a provision there for intelligence sharing, and this is because the two countries do share concerns about Pakistani foreign policy, about Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. Maybe I can elaborate during Q&A. So let's say Pakistan, the orientation of the Pakistani foreign policy. It's an issue of mutual concern between Greece and India, and this is because from the Greek side, it's because Pakistan has maintained a very close defense relationship with Turkey. So the current issues. First of all, the nature of the trade relationship. So India wants to promote its own trade route to Europe. Greece hopes to become a very important part of this new route with the port of Piraeus. Also, it's important to define the role of Greece in this new relationship, whether Greece will be perceived by the Indian government as just another EU partner, or it will be perceived as the most important EU partner in this effort to reach India. And also the level of the defense engagement is something open to negotiations, whether the two countries will just cooperate or they will go one step further and they will try to build something more strategic, let's say. So let me conclude here because we are running out of time, I guess. And during Q&A, maybe I can elaborate more on certain things. But I will have to leave around 12:30 my time. So I still have 35 minutes, let's say. But if for whatever reasons we don't finish by that time, I'm happy to answer any questions via email. You are more than welcome to send me your questions. It's my email account, so you can send me your questions there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel, for this very detailed, comprehensive, and full presentation. I think it has thrown up a large number of ideas. It has, of course, given to the listeners, to the participants, a fair idea of the relationship as it has evolved, the interests of the two sides, government level, people level, business level, to intensify the partnership. And as I mentioned also at the beginning, the exchange of the visits of our two prime ministers, both of them traveling to each other's country, one after the other, is solid evidence that both the sides want a transformation, want a rapid upward movement as far as the relationship is concerned. So you are here with us now for 35 minutes more. If we have one more speaker, let me invite her also. And as the time for all the speakers is about 12 to 15 minutes, so I'm sure as the other two speakers have stuck to their time limits, I'm sure she will also abide by that, and then we'll have some time for discussions and question answers. So Madam Nawad Chalikian, Research Fellow, APRI Armenia, I have great pleasure in inviting you. You have the floor.
Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to join this discussion. And thank you once again for a very warm welcome. This is a great collaboration that we have established between APRI and the Usanas Foundation, as my colleagues already mentioned. I don't want to go into details about this, but I just wanted to say that it is a pleasure to continue the collaboration, to see each other, to talk about these issues, because we believe this think tank and expert level discussions are really important. This is actually what is making the people-to-people ties vibrant. I would like to say some key comments about from the Armenians' perspective and from the India-Armenia relation perspective, and then we'll go on to the discussion probably. I will be brief in my beginning remarks. So you all know that India and Armenia have good relations for centuries, and it goes back to strong civilizational ties. Also politically, Armenia and India have always maintained friendly relations. Armenia has consistently supported India's position on the issue of Kashmir in the UN and other international platforms, and India has also supported Armenia on many important occasions. I can say that the relations have been developing at an unprecedented pace within the recent years, especially following the Nagorno-Karabakh War of 2020, where we saw that it was not only the involvement of Azerbaijan, but also of Turkey and Pakistan. And from that occasion, a lot of things started changing in the geopolitics of the region, and also beyond the region, probably. India has been Armenia's most important new partner in terms of defense, and also, as my colleague mentioned, one of the key important projects that Armenia and India are interested in developing together is the North-South Transport Corridor, and the section that would run from India to Iran, Armenia, Georgia, and Europe. I believe this is a mega project that is of great importance in the future if this is materialized, and it is in the interests of all the countries involved in this discussion to push this project forward. And I think there is a very strong understanding of the importance of these projects on all sides, especially India, Iran, and Armenia. A collaboration has been prominent in the Chabahar port. This is one of the examples of the collaboration between the three countries. In 2024, this year, Iran and India signed a historic deal under which New Delhi was granted the right to develop and operate the Iranian port of Chabahar on the Gulf of Oman. India can use this port to export goods to Iran, Afghanistan, and Central Asian countries, which is also a way to bypass the Pakistani Gwadar port. Again, this year, Iran granted access to Armenia to operate its Chabahar and Bandar Abbas ports to facilitate trade between Armenia and India. So this was also a very important milestone for Armenia. Armenia is also a member of the Eurasian Economic Union, and it is the only country that's the member of this union, and also at the same time is bordering Iran. So considering all the initiatives of getting better trade and facilitation, and also the FTAs that India wants to sign with the Eurasian Economic Union, and we know that Iran has already signed that. It is going to be another important link between India, Iran, and Armenia and the Eurasian Union. Let me say in brief terms that the defense collaboration has been very outstanding, because this is the main field that has really great implications on the general security situation in the region, actually. Well, following the Nagorno-Karabakh war, Armenia has started a full modernization of its armed forces, as well as adopted a policy of diversification of its security partners. So Armenia has turned to India and also to France for defense collaboration and for arms purchases. There have been many high-level visits, a lot of contracts, important contracts signed, and as a result of that, it has been really remarkable when you're looking at the numbers. You realize that a couple of years ago, Russia was actually providing about 95% of weapons to Armenia. I mean, Armenia was buying 95% of its weapons from Russia. And currently, Armenia is buying almost 90% of its weapons from India. This has been a very strong shift worth taking a note of. And it's also important to note that India is selling to Armenia the weapons that are indigenous, that are made in India. And this is also part of India's outreach in terms of gaining new markets for weapons and for defense industry. As for business ties, there are companies in different fields that have already started collaborating, but this was not the case many years ago. But currently, we see and we talk to the people here in Armenia, and also we met in India, people who already on their own, not facilitated by the state, but actually they got to know each other already through different networks, through business forums and other venues. It is defense, it is IT, it is high-tech, pharmaceuticals, renewable energy, tourism, and other sectors. Of course, trade is very important for boosting the bilateral relations, but it's still about 200 million. What we need is a goal that is much, much bigger than that, like a billion would be nice in a couple of years. There are also migrants coming from India to Armenia, and also for many years there have been students from India coming to study at Armenian universities. Just very briefly, I still have some 5 minutes, right? About Armenia-France. We have also seen a great impressive development in Armenia-France relations. And I must say that both with France and with India and with Greece, Armenia has long-standing civilizational ties, because all these countries are civilizational and historically and culturally interconnected with commonalities in their histories. And both France and Greece have recognized the Armenian genocide, which is also an important factor for Armenia. France also acted as a mediator in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict for many years. And following the 2020 war, France has developed its relations with Armenia on a strategic, maybe not strategic, but on a defense and security realms for sure, because France has started providing Armenia with weapons that it never provided before. These are also some artillery systems that are very advanced systems. We see that this military collaboration between France and Armenia is growing, and we observe again several high-level meetings between Armenian and Indian officials. As for Greece, it's also India-Greece relations are also developing, and we have again high-level visits, and we actually in 2023 we signed a joint defense industry cooperation agreement with Greece, and in March 2024 Armenia and Greece agreed to enhance military technical cooperation. That was decided at a meeting between ministers of defense. I would actually like to quote the Minister of Defense of Greece, because he said something that relates very much to the topic of this webinar. So when he was in Armenia, he said, we have created successful trilateral defense cooperation between Armenia, Greece, and Cyprus. But there can be other trilateral relationships with France and India, with important countries, major powers, very influential common friends of Armenia and Greece. I think this is something that we as think tanks should take a note of, and also develop ideas on how this multilateral collaboration can work in the future. It doesn't have to be on the military topics. It can be on any other topic that brings together intellectuals, businesses, and just people together. I would like to reiterate to also mention that given all this defense collaboration between India, Armenia, and France, Armenia, we have seen very aggressive rhetoric from Azerbaijan that has started criticizing both Greece and, mostly India and France for providing weapons to Armenia, saying that all these countries are fueling tensions in the region. And there have been some high-level responses to that, both from Macron and from the Indian officials. The reality is that these countries are not fueling the tensions in the region by providing weapons to Armenia. The reality is that it was Azerbaijan that started this full-scale war against Nagorno-Karabakh, and it had the means to do it because it had military advantage over the Armenian side. Currently, it has even more military advantage, and it is using this advantage to exercise pressure, to threaten to use force, and to use it, and it uses it as a leverage in negotiations to make Armenia make one-sided concessions. So this is not a very constructive approach, and we believe that for Armenia to be able to withstand this pressure and to be able to maintain its territorial integrity and peace in the region, it is important that Armenia gets stronger and that it has a little bit more leverage in this power disbalance. And exactly what France and India are doing is directed to providing Armenia leverage that can a little bit tilt the military advantage towards a balance, because Azerbaijan has many times stronger army and military currently. And also, I must say that we should also pay attention to this Zangezur corridor project that Azerbaijan is advancing, which means that they want to have a direct land connection with Turkey through Armenian territory. And in the long run, we believe that this is going to jeopardize Armenia-Iran border, and it is going to create incentives for much greater influence of Turkey, not only in the South Caucasus, but also expanding towards Central Asia and towards other regions of the world. And considering Turkey, Pakistan, Azerbaijan military and political alliance, which is a challenge not only to Armenia, but also to India, this is going to have implications not only for Armenia. So this is something that I would like to draw your attention on. Okay, how many minutes do I have? I don't want to go for too long, but yeah, I think I said most of the points that I wanted to say. But yeah, getting to the point of, okay, what can we do together? How can we collaborate? Because that's why we're here, right? We want to know how we can build bridges so that we can identify the topics and the areas over which track 2 dialogues or webinars like this, and also projects probably between the 4 countries can be developed. I have a couple of bullet points in this regard that I believe might be useful in future, so that when we think about, okay, what's next after this webinar, we can get back maybe to these points. As I mentioned, all the countries are connected with civilizational ties, so civilizational and cultural and historic aspects are important. And this is also a huge platform where we can develop shared ideas for contemporary world affairs. So, for example, let me not sound very too broad, but it is a very interesting domain to explore. Strategic connectivity projects, I already mentioned the NSTC, and having more discussion from the economists probably would be a good way forward, like what are going to be the benefits for each country. A lot is already there, but it's always good to be talking about this, and the key goal is not just talk about it, but the most important thing is to get the businesses and governments interested in investing in this project, because without investment, this is not going to go far. Also, security and defense, as I mentioned, is another domain for collaboration and diplomatic cooperation, because I believe that there are a lot of things that we can learn from each other, considering the common challenges and threats that we face. We definitely have a lot to learn from both India and Greece in many ways. And also, as my colleague Benyamin mentioned, facilitating private sector collaborations, IT, high tech, is really important for Armenia, because these are developing fields, and we have very, very vibrant startup ecosystem. We do chip design, and we have already engaged many impressive international companies to collaborate and to open branches in Armenia. We would like to expand this to other countries as well. Let me stop here, and thank you very much for your attention.
Unmuted. Okay. So what I was saying, thanking the final speaker for the very interesting ideas that you have come up with. We have got very interesting ideas from all the 3 speakers, and their scope has also been quite expansive and comprehensive. So now we can have some discussions, some questions. If I don't see any questions that have been posted on the site from any of the participants. You have a question. Okay.
Yes. So I have 2 questions. First is for Dr. Emmanuel, and then for Benjamin and Rod. Dr. Emmanuel, you mentioned about this Pakistan and Turkey threat. I guess, well, Pakistan and Turkey threat is a common security challenge to both India and Greece. In India's case, I have mostly worked on terrorism, and I've seen that when it comes to Pakistan and Turkey threat in India, or to India's national security, it is not simply confined to the state-to-state level ties. It works on 2 tracks. On the first track, that's definitely the state and geopolitics and military-to-military threats are working. But there is a parallel track in which quasi-state actors or semi-state actors are also, enhancing that threat. And
he has to go early. let me tell you that, as far as relations between India and Greece, they are historical, civilizational, cultural. And in India, people have at the ordinary level, they have a very positive image of the association with Greece. Whether it is in terms of the medicine, the Unani medicine that came from Greece, or even Alexander in 326 BC when he came to India, he came as an invader, he came as a conqueror. But there are very positive stories, anecdotes in the public domain, and I could share one of them with you. That when he came and he defeated one of the kings, that is King Porus, and at that time King Alexander, he asked King Porus, well, how would you like me to deal with you? How would you like me to treat you? And Porus said, one king would treat another king. And Alexander was so happy with this response that he let him go free and he let him have his kingdom back. So there are very many such stories which talk about the magnanimity and the large-heartedness of Alexander. And it is, even as far as the art and the sculpture and the architecture in India is concerned, how the Greek form of sculpting impacted. If you look at, because Buddhism was on the rise at that time, and if you look at Buddha's images, and there you find whether it is the type of the hair formation or it is the type of the attire and the clothes, there is a very distinct Greek impact, very distinct Greek influence that is there, whether it is on the brass sculptures or on the other stone sculptures. So from that time onwards, it has had a very positive impact on India. As far as questions are concerned, let me put both to Professor Benyamin and the final speaker, Nawad. And that is, as far as the INSTC is concerned, I'm sure both of you are aware that when it was initially set in motion in the end 1990s, the idea was it will go from India to Iran to Azerbaijan to Russia, and from there maybe go to North Europe. Now, relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia being what they are and being what they have been, how do you look at it? And of course, the connectivity between Iran and Azerbaijan and up north, that has been established. So how do we include Armenia into that, connectivity? I think that would be some bit of a challenge. As far as what you also mentioned, Nawad, that 90% of the defense imports by Armenia are from India today, as against 95% from Soviet Union and Russia earlier. My question to you is, how much is then France supplying? Because you said that France and India, both of them are significant partners and significant players as far as this is concerned. And the last one would really be is that, to the first speaker, Professor Benjamin, because you have mentioned it only in the context of the physical connectivity. I think if we are to talk about the possibilities of cooperation in the digital world and digital connectivity, and particularly, since you have been to India, so you know how well India has been able to use the, the public digital infrastructure in terms of reaching out as far as the assistance that the government has to provide to different people in terms of fintech, financial transactions, how quick that is, what an impact it makes as far as poverty is concerned, what an impact it makes on the speed of transactions, what impact it makes on bringing down corruption. So I think these are also areas where we can work together. India's strengths in this area, in the DPI area, also in India's strengths in the area of pharmaceuticals, which is an important. So maybe we can give a further thought to it and expand our areas of cooperation. So let me throw it open to all the three speakers. If you can quickly respond, and I see that I think Abhinav is also back on the line, and he can take his questions forward. So
Okay.
maybe first,
Should
if we
I-
start with Professor Emmanuel, because we have you are the one who has to leave early.
So should I just finish my question to Professor Emmanuel and then?
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry, I lost the connection. So what I was saying is that Pakistan and Turkey threat has this, element of non-state actors and quasi-state actors, mostly Islamic religious extremist scholars and Maulanas, reaching out to the people in India at the lower level, creating social disruption, communal disharmony, and also terrorism. Given that, and this is, I think that, I'm not really aware, but that may be the case in Greece also. Last year I was in Greece, and there was an attack on some Jewish people in which Pakistani handlers were found, and also there's a strong sentiment against the Christians also. So given that, do you think is there any possibility of some kind of a dialogue between the Greek Orthodox Church and India's Hindu religious leadership, and also from the Armenia side, the Apostolic Church leadership? That can also be a good format for the people-to-people connect also.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Abhinav. So let me pass on to invite Professor Emmanuel, if you could respond to the questions posed to you, and then we can move to.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, okay. Let me start with Pakistan, because I think there are two separate issues. I mean, there is a threat assessment regarding Pakistan's intentions, and then there is something else that I will address later about interreligious dialogue. So, Pakistan has not been identified as an enemy country or anything. Around, let's say, 100,000 people. Most of them are very well integrated, they are very law abiding, but this community has been politicized. I mean, parts of this community and some of the Pakistani organizations based in Greece have been politicized. I mean, they will have meetings and they, about Kashmir, and they will organize protests against the Indian government. So this is an issue. So this is something that the Greek authorities will monitor, the politicization of activities regarding the Kashmir issue and some other issues that I don't want to mention this openly now. But there is, let's say, growing concern about how the Pakistani community in Greece is responding to certain questions about Kashmir, about India, about the establishment of Islamic mosques, institutions, etc., etc. But let's say that most Pakistani migrants are very well integrated in this. But there is a concern there that maybe some radicalized elements will infiltrate the community, and they will organize attacks. And from time to time, there have been arrests based on information that mostly came from abroad. The second dimension regarding Pakistan has to do with the conventional cooperation between Pakistani armed forces and the Turkish armed forces. So since the mid to late 90s, there are exercises between Pakistan and India. Pakistani warships have visited the Aegean Sea, even a submarine, if I remember correctly. A Pakistani submarine came all the way from Pakistan to the Aegean Sea to participate in joint exercises with Turkey. So that, I wouldn't say that created a shock, but that came as a huge surprise. A Pakistani submarine, a Pakistani warship, to come all the way, from the from the Indian Ocean to the Aegean Sea. Okay, that was something that people notice. And this conventional dimension of the relationship, it's something that policy planners will take into account. There is a third element. I will call it the nightmare scenario. The nightmare scenario is that somehow Turkey will obtain nuclear weapons from Pakistan, and one day Turkey will become a nuclear power. So there is much speculation about this since the 80s, that the Turks somehow supported the Pakistani clandestine nuclear program, because I will remind that Turkey is a member state of NATO, so Turkey did have access to some important, strategic technology. So there is some speculation that, one day Pakistan can reciprocate, and, I don't think that will be that easy, but this is the nightmare scenario, that Turkey will become a nuclear power with Pakistani support. So I think when it comes to the defense relation between Greece and India, we cannot understand the defense element of that relationship between Greece and India if we don't take into consideration the role of Pakistan there. So without Pakistan, let me put it in this way, without Pakistan, Greece maybe would have been less keen to develop that defense relationship with India. Maybe Greece would have focused only on trade or technology or something else. Now, when it comes to interstate relations, from what I know, there is no such an effort at all. I doubt if there is even such an idea to promote dialogue between the Greek Orthodox Church, Eastern Christianity, and Hinduism. And this has to do, I think, with the fact that, Christianity is an Abrahamic religion. So, it has been already too difficult to promote dialogue between Islam and Christianity. So people cannot be very ambitious. I mean, most people don't really know anything about Hinduism. It's a very different religion. So I don't think there is no energy, there is no appetite for something like this. And I doubt if it has ever been discussed seriously, by the Greek Church or by the Ecumenical Patriarch or by other Eastern Christian leaders, such a possibility. I don't think that it's realistic now. So religion, either religious dialogue, I don't think that will promote in any way the relationship. But cultural cooperation, it's not something totally different from what we are suggesting, but, to know more about Greek and Indian literature, to know more about, other elements of the two cultures, I think it's enough for now. We don't have to be very ambitious, try to achieve something that is not realistic. Thank you so much for the invitation. Sorry that I cannot stay with you longer, but I have to meet students, and this is how I make my living. I have to meet my students. So I'm sorry that I have to leave. Thank you for the invitation, and please stay in touch, if you want to. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It was great meeting you.
Yeah. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your responses. So let me now turn to Professor Benyamin. If you have any comments or response, please share your thoughts, and then we'll come to the third speaker, Madam Nawad, and if you can then share your ideas and views. Professor Benyamin.
Thank you, Ambassador. So regarding international North-South transport corridor, you are definitely right. That's the first idea in late 1990s and early 2000s, was to connect India with Russia and via Russia to Northern Europe. And they discussed 3 different routes: India, Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia, Northern Europe; India, Iran, Caspian Sea, Russia, Northern Europe, or so-called Eastern route: India, Iran, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Northern Europe. But the core idea was, let's connect India with Russia and Europe. And of course, in this context, there was no discussion about Armenia taking part in the project. However, after February 2022, it's clear that any large-scale transit from Russia to Europe is complicated. Let's put it this way. So currently, this international North-South transport corridor can be used to connect India up to Russia. Again, it could be Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia, or Iran, Caspian Sea, Russia, or through Central Asian republics. Iran, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Russia. But the final destination, Europe or Northern Europe, is not capable now because of Russia-West confrontation, which, regardless of how the war in Ukraine will be stopped, most probably will take years or even decades. What I was pointing that yes, India needs to reach Russia, but also India needs to reach Europe. And the final destination and core goal of this international north-south transport corridor was to reach Europe, which means that currently you cannot reach Europe via international north-south transport corridor, but India still needs alternative routes to reach Europe, not only via Suez Channel. And here the route can be India, Iran, Armenia, and India and Armenia has direct land border. You do not need any Azerbaijan to be part of this route. And then from Armenia, you directly can enter Georgia because Armenia has a direct land border with Georgia. And via Georgia, via Black Sea, you can enter the Europe. So in this configuration, this could be an alternative route to reach Europe from India, again via Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Black Sea. And here you do not need to pass through Azerbaijan. You do not need to negotiate with Azerbaijan. You need only Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Black Sea. The second question, you said that maybe there are also other areas where we can cooperate, including this Indian digital infrastructure used in public policy, helping the state to reach its population. Also, you spoke about pharmaceuticals. Definitely, I fully agree that when I said about IT or digital technologies, this cannot be or should not be the only way to develop India-Armenia relations. But relations to be developed, we should start from somewhere because you can identify like 10 or 15 directions, but I think it will be a little bit problematic to start to move simultaneously through these different areas. And because Armenia is becoming the IT hub in our region, even many Western companies and experts, they call Armenia as the Silicon Valley of South Caucasus or Silicon Mountains of South Caucasus. I mean, this is the first area when relations can be developed. And second area, before going to other discussions, we need more people-to-people contacts, which means we need direct flights. I think it's a little bit surprising that India has direct flights with Azerbaijan, India has direct flights with Georgia, but still India has no direct flights with Armenia. Currently, one of small Armenian air companies envisages to launch a direct flight from Yerevan to Delhi in mid-November 2024. But even if this is being done, given that this is a small air company with only few airplanes, it's definitely not enough. While if you look into India, Azerbaijan or India, Georgia, it's one of the biggest Indian air companies that flies it. I refer to Indigo. So the second area should be to try to have, first of all, direct flights, but also reliable direct flights, not through the air company, which is only one or two airplanes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Benyamin. I think you make very valid points. I have one comment on your first response to my first question, but I will hold it till later and give the floor at the moment to Madam Nawar. And if you could share your thoughts, and then we could come to the other, see if there are any other questions or comments.
Thank you. Your question to me was about the percentage of the weapons that I mentioned, right? So according to the latest estimates, actually, the share of France has increased because only the recent purchase of artillery systems is about $150 million, which is making France more advanced in terms of the percentage of total weapons provided to Armenia, and it's about maybe 15 to 20% roughly, according to our military expert. As for India, its total size is reaching around like 1 billion of all the of the purchases by Armenia, and as for Russia, we do not have new contracts with Russia at the moment, so it is really hard to say. Not very accurate estimates on that side.
Thank you very
But
much.
the important thing is the trend of growing and getting more and more contracts both with France and with India. And also, I think there is a lot of room for collaborating against Azerbaijani propaganda that is against our nations.
True. Just one follow-up question on that. I, read some report that there was some conflict of interest between India and France in terms of supplying defense equipment to Armenia. I'm not, certain about the details, but why, since we are having this conversation, I thought I'll put it to you. You would be, much better aware, because India and France are also, as I'm sure you are aware, very close strategic partners.
Yes, of course.
And of course, we don't want that we should be sort of, quarreling for something with common friends and partners. So I just wanted to have, your response and your comment on that.
Well, I myself am not a military expert, and we have a military expert in our team who is very closely following all these developments and making the note of whatever is happening. But as far as I know, there has not been something really major in terms of a conflict. It's definitely not a conflict. Maybe there was some competition.
No conflict of interest.
I know. Yeah, there was some
I don't mean
competition
conflict.
because Armenia wanted to buy certain types of weapon, and there was conversations whether they're going to buy from France or from India. But I think these processes are very normal processes between countries that are making deals, because there are a lot of things to consider, like price, like the way and the timing that the weapons are going to be delivered. So I do not think there is a especially conflict, and maybe there is some slight competition, just like it is in any market economy between any other
normal commercial competition.
Yes, but it is definitely not a tension between countries.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Just one quick question for Ben. Can you hear me, Ben? Yeah.
Yes, I hear you very well.
Yes. So you mentioned about this alternative route for the INSTC through Armenia, to Iran, Armenia, and Georgia. But so my question is regarding this Azerbaijan's, Zanzibar dreams. Like, I mean, if what about the city, like overall? I mean, what is the feasibility of the project, given the fact that Azerbaijan is, like having this, malicious designs over Zanzibar corridor?
Of course, so we all know that Azerbaijan wants to have a direct access to Turkey via Armenia's Syunik province, and Syunik province is a province which has border with Iran. And yes, now Syunik become like a complex nexus of geopolitics and geoeconomics. We have Azerbaijan, we have Turkey, we have Russia who would like to control this corridor, we have Americans who does not want Russia to control this corridor. So it's like a very messy and complex and complicated situation, and sometimes even like quite experts with like deeper knowledge of the situation, even sometimes they are confused who wants what. Like Russians want what and why, Americans want what and why, and what are the Armenian interests in all this. I fully agree with you that, of course, geopolitical tensions is not good for any large-scale transit. But let's not forget that we are speaking about a mid and long-term perspective, because as I mentioned, still Armenia and Iran lacks relevant infrastructure. to launch these routes, even if, let's assume, there is no geopolitical tensions and Europe is ready to use Iran as an area to get goods. Now, Armenian government is taking some steps to develop infrastructure which connects Armenia with Iran, but according to several estimates, we need approximately 7-8 years to finalize this infrastructure. So really, in real terms, we can speak about this India, Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Black Sea, Europe route as a really big route for some big millions of tons of cargo annually transportation, no earlier than somewhere in 2030, 2032. Before that, of course, different things can be changed, including geopolitics of the South Caucasus, like role of external actors. But again, this is like long-term possibility. And we all know that in geopolitics, as well in geoeconomics, not all possibilities are become realities. Also, we know that for long-term planning, if we speak about geoeconomic and geopolitical interests, is not only about like time frame is not only 3, 5, 7 years. Time frames sometimes in 10 years. So this is something which should be discussed and which should be kept in our minds, Armenian minds, Indian minds, but also, yes, there should be no exaggerated expectations that somewhere in 2025, this route is going to be opened or launched. In any case, this route is not going to be opened or launched until 2030, 2031. So yes, many things can be happen, but again, for long-term planning, I think any alternatives, any scenario building analysis are useful.
Thank you.
I think you have a very valid point in terms of, that all the possibilities we need to see. But I think along with that, whether there is a strategic appetite for such a route, and also in terms of investments as to where will the investments come from, because that is a big challenge also. Meaning, of course, I can see that there is the middle corridor that is coming. I'm sure you are aware, which is coming from China through Central Asia, what is the Trans-Caspian International Trade Corridor, and that is going through Azerbaijan, which is a big player in that, also through Georgia also. And as you might be aware, Europe is putting a lot of its money into financing that particular infrastructure project. So I don't know whether that, in some way, whether that can work out, that can join in with the INSTC, go through Armenia, and get to Europe on that. The other aspect, of course, we have, you did say that, Suez Canal creates problems because, the evergreen fiasco that we had some years ago. But along with that, we have also the IMEC that was discussed at the G20 last year, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Meaning I can see that, there is conflict and fighting in the Middle East, and so that also might take a little time, although discussions on that continue. But maybe these are all ideas which we can keep at the back of our minds and keep thinking about it to see whether there are any further possibilities. So let me check if there are any more requests for the floor, questions or comments.
Can I speak something with the permission of Ambassador Sajjanhar sir?
जी, बोलिए.
Namaskar sir.
Namaskar. Good to
Actually,
have
the
you.
point-
Good to have you on
Yes.
this platform.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Actually, I have 3 important suggestions to our audience will take out. First is that, why don't you, means for the Benjamin, this is a question, we can create a new kind of sub-regional cooperation involving India, Armenia, Greece, Cyprus, along with Bulgaria, Romania, Georgia, and also involving Israel. That is one of the that can be created because European Union is facing a lot of problems, social as well as economic. And there are many suggestions, many studies which are coming out which suggest that the idea of European Union may not be feasible for long, because the way France and Germany they are talking, and there is a dissension within the European Union over role of NATO also in Ukraine, because Germans they don't want to have a fight with Russia on Ukrainian issue. That is one point. So that can provide a new kind of geo-economic cooperation involving led by India. The second is, I think now India is one of the major hub for drone manufacturing, and our startup projects are really doing great. So I think there can be, you can also, particularly for the Armenians, that you can buy some drones from India also, because we have a lot of drones and that can be capable, highly capable. So that is the second point. The third important point is what Benyamin has talked recent just now. We can strengthen India, Iran, Armenia, Georgia, and Black Sea cooperation, because this is going to be the Black Sea along with Mediterranean are the two means Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea are the future of this heartland geopolitics. So I think in that context, we can see a new kind of geo-economic cooperation in this broader sub-regional cooperation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for these very interesting ideas. I'm sure what Professor Nalin Mahapatra has said just now, maybe we cannot expect from any of the speakers any immediate, direct, fully well-considered response. So let us get this, internalize this, and try to think more about it, sleep over it, and maybe in the forthcoming discussions that can take place between on different platforms, we can flesh it out a little more, and Professor Nalin can also give a little more thought to it and see if there can be, in not in very detailed papers as such, but as bullet points, if there can be a little more meat that is that can be added to this. Because what I'm also seeing is that we have already crossed 1 hour 50 minutes of our conversation, and we've had a full discussion. We have had a very rich, exhaustive, expansive discussion. But unless there is some very important comments or questions that might be from the floor or any one of the other participants, we could pass the floor back to the organizers, that is to Abhinav and to APRI Professor Benjamin. So if are there any further comments from the floor, further questions from the floor? Doesn't seem to be the case. So let me thank all of you on my behalf for putting in so much of effort. Thank Abhinav, thank Professor Benyamin, thank Madam Nevard, and also Professor Emmanuel, who's not with us, and all the participants who've taken out the time to be with us so diligently, go through all the conversations, and I'm sure we'll have many other opportunities to get together and to take these ideas forward. Abhinav, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sajjanhar, for moderating and chairing this very exhaustive and a very nuanced session on India's new Europe outreach. I would also like to thank all our esteemed panelists, Benyamin, Nawaz Shalikian, and Dr. Emmanuel, for their detailed and exhaustive thoughts on the different aspects of the India's relationship with these respective countries, and also the relationship between these countries as a group. Well, I was discussing the idea with Nawaz a few days back, and I guess, this webinar is basically a result of that idea that, there is a lot to be explored between India, France, Armenia, and Greece. India prefers to work through multilaterals, which is now like a new trend in the global diplomacy. We are already a part of one multilateral in the Gulf region, that is I2U2. Another potential and a very robust mini lateral could be this India, France, Armenia, and Greece. And these four countries can move along various tracks. Like there is a very robust civilization connectivity, civilizational heritage among these countries to explore and develop. There's a strong business connectivity, and there's a lot of potential in robust economic ties, defense ties, and also overall strategic geopolitical ties, because we also share common security challenges about which Ben and Dr. Emmanuel also discussed at length. Mostly Pakistan, Turkey, Azerbaijan access, and the Islamic extremism. Besides that, this grouping has a lot to do about what's happening in the overall world today. We are moving towards a multipolar world. Major changes are taking place in the European security architecture, also in the Asian security architecture. So there is a lot that can be explored and possibly done. We look forward to continue these kind of dialogues in the future. Perhaps maybe one more webinar like in November, and later continue with another offline event focusing on the relationship between these four countries, India, Armenia, Greece, and France. In either of these countries, we actually look forward to organize one offline event also. And definitely we look forward to a strong partnership with APRI in carrying forward this initiative. And before I end, I'll also request Ben or Noad just to say some closing remarks about this whole initiative, and then we can just call it a day. Thank you.
I can jump in very quickly. Yeah, I think we should sum up the takeaways from this discussion and the key points that will be really useful for future like getting togethers like this. And I tried to do that in my speech, but also I really liked the idea of having India, Iran, Armenia, Georgia, Black Sea cooperation that was raised by the professor. I think it makes a lot of sense to discuss the issues that are common challenges between our countries, and to especially spot where the role of think tanks can be useful. That's, I think, our task, and I really hope that we continue this. I'm really thankful for this opportunity. It is always a pleasure to be cooperating and to be discussing our ideas. Every time you discover that you have a lot in common between these countries, and every time there are more like windows that are opening. But we need, I think, next time also to focus on some specific issue, because we discussed a lot today, and to see how far we can go. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Noad, and convey my warmest regards to Lara also. She was a great host
Thank you,
at the APRI Forum, and I had a great time there. And we look forward to continue this initiative. Before I end, I would also like to thank my Usanas team, Dr. Anita Jain, Preeti Kheta, Nikita Anand, and all my interns, Satyansh, Ruchika, and everyone, Harsh. Thank you very much for your cooperation and your contribution.